Hello, everyone. This is Rick, and welcome to Astral Club. This is questions and answers number 31. We're going to talk about some of the more recent videos, some of them involving space and aliens, some of them involving psychic defense, things like that. Before I get started, just want to mention Patreon if you'd like to support the work of Astral Club and spreading knowledge of astral projection and associated topics. You can do so, and when you do, you get advanced episodes on Sunday, a library of downloaded episodes for your podcast app, and a Patreon email where we can talk back and forth. And if you're interested, there is a link in the description. Next up, if you'd like a lesson to learn to astral project, I find they work out pretty well. It's one-on-one, so it's a safe space. You can ask whatever questions you want, share whatever fears or experiences you need to, without having to worry about dealing with something in the comments section. Some people just don't feel comfortable doing that. If you're interested, there's an email in the description, and I'll send you some information. It's been a while since I've done a general questions and answers episode. Lately, I've been doing ones based on particular popular videos. Like the recent meeting with the Great Council, when there's a bunch of questions. So I've just kind of been using themed ones. But Syrian asked me when we're going to have another one, so I figured, what the heck, let's do it. And I'll share with you one of the reasons why I decided to do it this week. The first question comes from Avoid the Earthbound Spirit Trap. And it was 01010101 that was asking whether I have any PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder. It does happen. Most recently, the reason I'm doing a Q&A is I've had some trouble projecting over the last week. Basically because I've been having very intense nightmares about my Anasazi trip and the things that I saw there. Waking up, in a sweat and just being a little out of my mind. So it definitely does affect me. I tell myself gradually just to let it out, realize that it happened a long time ago, and to let it go. It just takes my subconscious a little bit longer to actually deal with the trauma involved. Next up, El Tycoon in the same video asked, how long does it take for you to leave your body each time? It usually just takes, it's either instantaneous or a matter of a few seconds. And then he asked, who do you pray to if you need guidance or help? I've already shared that I typically don't like asking for guidance or help. And I've been doing this ever since I was a kid, and I never knew that was even an option. So I tend to be pretty independent, which is a fault of mine, but also it's a strength too when you're dealing with the astral world. There's a lot of places that you have to be comfortable going there by yourself if you want to go there and do the proper research. And explorers can't always ask to have somebody holding their hand. So you have to do what you have to do. In the episode entitled, Is the U.S. Hiding Alien Crafts and Bodies?, Dylan Pickle asked me, I think humanity is close to having first contact, maybe sometime around 2025. I don't mean to be flippant, but I think humanity had first contact with aliens a very long time ago. If you look at the writings of the ancient Indian civilization, the Sumerians, the ancient Chinese, you can ferret out stories that they had contact. They may have phrased it in different ways, but we've had first contact, and we had it a long time ago. In that same video, Melissa Avieska asked, have you ever gone to see how the pyramids were built? That's the very first thing I would try to see if I learned to astral project. I'll mention this because a lot of people end up asking me about the darn pyramids. I'm interested in meeting new life and new civilizations. I want to boldly go where no one has gone before. I'm less interested in building projects, even big ones. Ricardo Onifree asks, why didn't you mention your experience in the underwater craft with the Nordic aliens and the U.S. official? Yeah, it didn't occur to me to review that. Anyone who's been listening long enough will remember when I went into the Gulf of Mexico and I found that undersea craft that was manned by Nordic aliens, and I saw that there was an Air Force colonel there as well that was working with them, probably on behalf of the United States government. Basically, I didn't really have anything to add to it. So if you want to watch that episode, all you have to do is go to my playlist of space and aliens, and if you look up, the title is something like "Underwater Alien Craft Found." That's the episode that you'll be able to listen to if you haven't previously listened to the Nordic undersea craft experience before. Adam Walker, UK, asked about, can you astral project and see these alien craft by chance? I tried that once and tried to get into a super secret hangar, and I got caught up in some sort of a EM-like field countermeasure, which I can only assume they set up to stop people like myself. I don't know who else would be vulnerable to that type of a EM field as well. So that was the last time I ever tried to get into an ultra top secret type hangar. That was a very uncomfortable feeling, and I don't mean to feel it again. In the episodes False Awakenings and Astral Projection, Corey F. Mahler Audio mentioned that he likes to have a micro recorder next to his bed. I used to use a micro recorder before I switched with my iPhone, but Corey likes the likes the micro recorder because it allows him to record his experiences without all that extra light that comes with your phone. And he's got a point there. I mean, I use my micro recorder to the day the darn thing broke. Do they still sell them? I don't know. I don't know. Hopefully they do somewhere. At any rate, it's a good point. Bills85 asks, do you have anything to share about consecutive false awakenings? They can feel quite scary to me. All I can answer is, and once again, a false awakening is when you think you've returned to your body, and you may even try to record your episode, and perhaps you feel like you have, and then you wake up the next morning and find that there's nothing on your phone, nothing on your recorder, or whatever. That's a false awakening. It happens when you return almost to your physical body or in very close proximity. Perhaps part of you is in, and there's a very weird sensation because your physical brain, once again, is trying to make sense of all of this. And it's giving you a sensation that you're back in your body because you almost are. And so it's very easy in that state to think that you've actually returned and awakened. So that is a false awakening. Unfortunately, the false awakenings, they shouldn't engender fear. All they really are is a side effect, what I consider a minor side effect, of astral projection. I've experienced a number of them. I haven't in a long time, but I did experience some in my time. All I could say is you're in no danger. They're just a moderate side effect of astral projection. In the episode entitled Basic Psychic Self-Defense, Chazzy had some concerns about an astral ghost that is disturbing his sleep, and he also wanted to know about whether energy can be captured and you can be harmed by some negative entity. In rare cases, a number of things can occur. First of all, I think you'll find that the methods and the cleansing methods mentioned in this particular episode will get rid of your garden variety haunts. Where this should be quite effective. And in extreme cases, it's a different matter, and there's nothing I can do about that. Call Ghostbusters, I guess. Not the 2016 ones, though. The ones with Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray. As far as stealing your energy, on some level, you have to allow a being to take some of your energy. You are at no more risk on the astral than you are in the physical. And in fact, at least in the astral, you can be aware of what's going on, whereas in the physical, you may not. However, once again, these types of techniques go a long way to filtering out problems. And there's negative beings on the astral. There's negative beings in the physical. Fortunately, you can't have the light without the dark. But, take some of these basic precautions and you're going to be just fine. Avery Lindsay asked some questions about mental illness, whether it's a disease of the soul or purely of the mind. Now, that's a philosophical question that has gone back thousands of years. If you would have talked to people back in the medieval times, they might have said that the person suffering was cursed, or was being bedeviled by demons. They considered people with physical deformities as less than, because they saw them as somehow cursed by God. I think we have to be very careful with that idea. Mental illness is a combination of genetics and environment. I can tell you that once somebody passes on, if they have that type of problem, they will spend a good amount of time being healed in the astral healing plane. As to why they chose that body, that's another eternal question, which I cannot completely answer. All I can tell you is that, I made a choice when I picked my mother and my father. And I remember having a basic idea that this life would allow me to accomplish one of my major goals, which was spreading information about astral projection. But I don't recall getting a full workup on diseases that I might suffer from. That never came to me. As a matter of fact, I suffered as a baby, very young, from something called pyloric stenosis, which is when a little fleshy film covers the area between the stomach and the pylorus. So the stomach tries to push out the food into the pylorus once it's done its job. But if that little growth happens, and it is a genetic thing, we know that, then what it does is it acts like a trampoline, and that food is then rejected violently. And the child, the very young child, ends up vomiting quite far, quite explosively. 100 years ago, I would have died, before our modern surgery had occurred. So I'm very happy about that. But, I had no information about possible physical diseases. So I would imagine that others were probably in the same type of boat. Soul Dust Sword asked a great question. They wanted to know, they had been to a medium, and this spiritual medium advised them that they were cursed by black magic. And they even eventually got around to what relationship was causing it. And it was confusing, Soul Dust Sword, because they don't really have a close relationship with this person, and they wouldn't understand why they would practice black magic against them. And apparently, the medium indicated that they would need to perform a cleansing ritual, and that the woman would then figure out that the curse was off, and they'll probably do it again. And so there'd have to be somewhat frequent treatments to ward off this curse. At any rate, they asked for my opinion on it. And I said, I think you should go with your gut feeling, because I had a feeling that they weren't quite buying it. But I think you should go with your gut feeling on this subject as to whether you're cursed or not. A true curse requires an immense expenditure of energy and intense dark emotions like seething hatred or blinding jealousy. Extensive experience in the black arts is also required. Typically, jilted lovers may fall into this category because they say there's a fine dividing line between love and hate. So in a bad breakup, sometimes there's enough emotions on one side or another to develop some sort of a curse. But I said, by your brief description of your relationship, it doesn't sound like it was a bad romantic breakup. And secondly, I said, always take information with a grain of salt if it's given to you by someone who stands to profit from your actions. It sounds like the alleged psychic might benefit in some way if you need regular uncursings. And then they went on to say, okay, thanks. That's kind of what I thought, because she said that I would need these defense treatments on a regular basis. And yes, there would be a fee involved. So word to the wise people, you still have to keep your eyes open and use your common sense when someone's giving you information that doesn't quite sit right, especially when they have something to gain from it. That was a little We Are Family music. Okay, on the Beetlejuice Goes Supernova episode, we were talking about how I was on my way 200 years in the future to check out the reality there, when I was disturbed in the middle of my trip, and based on the overflow of emotion that came, I decided to do something I don't normally do, which is stop my travel to the future and kind of break out of the time tunnel. And what I found there was two suns in the sky, one of which was the supernova Beetlejuice. So I think there was some confusion. People were thinking that it was 200 years in the future. No, I don't think so. Remember, I broke out of the time trip. So I'm not exactly sure when this was going to happen, but I know it's going to happen a lot sooner than 200 years. And then someone asked me, well, how did you also get to see it in the nighttime? Because, they realized that when I travel into the past or the near future, I usually don't get to spend a lot of time there. And I didn't. I spent maybe 10 or 15 minutes tops in this future. But what I did was, after seeing it in the daytime, I projected myself to the nighttime, which is an extremely simple procedure. So I was able to see it at night, and I was able to observe some supernova parties, which seemed to be all the rage based on the surface thoughts that I was able to pick up. So some of you younger folks out there just might get a chance to see a supernova in your lifetime. In the Brain and Astral Projection, Alexander Sacido wanted to know what is the nature of the connection between the brain and the astral body. Is it just the astral cord? Is it something else? Perhaps the reason why you black out? I mean, that is an impossible question to answer. I have witnessed the astral cord, of course, connecting my astral body to my physical body. However, I don't get dual sensations when I'm astral projecting because I try to get as far away from my physical body as possible. And in that process, I'm not getting dual feedback. And if I was starting to receive dual feedback, that would mean it was time to return shortly before I am pulled back into my body. So I think, once again, it's difficult to answer the question completely because the memories that we talk about when we return to our bodies, such as I'm discussing right now, are being and have been filtered through the physical brain. And remember, we talked about in this episode how the physical brain works. It makes order out of chaos. That's how our brains work. That's why our ancestors looked up into the sky, seeing an inherently chaotic group of stars, and they started making pictures out of them. And depending on what culture you were from, whether you were from China or whether you were from Europe, the pictures were different, but they were pictures all the same, making order out of chaos. And we also know the brain has a habit of filling in the blanks. If you come back to your body with a set of memories from the astral, keep in mind that they're all being downloaded into your physical brain. And your physical brain might be taking some liberties with some of those memories. And I think that might explain why certain people report having taste, for instance, on the astral. There's no reason to have a sense of taste on the astral. Taste and smell serve the physical, served our ancestors in being able to detect possibly poisonous substances. But what I think happens is when we return to our bodies and the information is downloaded, the brain finds the closest thing to whatever it is you believe that you ate on the astral, and it supplies the memories of the taste. And we mentioned what it's like if I say, hey, imagine cutting a lemon. Everyone who hears this can now probably smell a little bit of lemon because your brain senses that memory is required right now. And so a little bit of it comes to you, even though there's probably not a lemon anywhere near the room where you're currently in. Lastly, DeGrybo gave me a link, which was a study on apparent vision for people who have been blind since birth, who have experienced near-death experiences or out-of-the-body experiences. And what I'll do is I'll put that link that DeGrybo sent me in the description for anybody who wants to read the study themselves. It was quite fascinating because I've had that answer before in the past, and I didn't have a good answer for it because I tend to speak from my experiences. I have not been blind since birth. So it wasn't for me to try to explain what that might be like. So what was interesting about this study is that apparently this person who had been blind from birth described a projection in which all of their other senses were extended. And in essence, they could see in a fashion. They knew where they were because all those other senses were making up for this loss of vision. Now, someone might say to me, wait a minute, Rick, are you saying that I'm going to be blind for all eternity? No. My theory is, and I believe this study, but my theory is this. My theory is there was visual stimulus that the astral body received. However, because there was no frame of reference, when the person returned to their body, when the vision file was accessed, it was file not found. And so any and all data that was gained by the astral body ended up being filtering through the experiences of the other senses, which this person experienced and had experienced since birth. So I think that's probably the best answer that I've ever been able to supply to this particular question. So yes, there is hope. I imagine that once this person passes over, has been blind since birth, they'll go through healing and they'll be able to finally integrate the whole visual sensory experience, because it would have been out of practice for a long term. But the good news is you will not be blind for life. Well, that's it for this Q&A session. I hope you found it interesting. If you did, please hit the like button, share it with those of like mind, subscribe if you haven't done so already. And of course, questions and comments. I wish I could have included them all, but I just cherry pick to try to give us an interesting episode that doesn't draw on forever and ever. Anyway, this is Rick, and I will see you on the astral plane.